everybody, it is Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another video over here on That's Comical, and if you are watching on a Wednesday, happy new comic book day. Well, while I may not be in the best of shape today, for strange and crazy reasons, among many, I am of course excited to come to you guys with another episode of Stats, Trends, and Picks, this time for March of 2023. I am definitely going to say that it was a very interesting month. There was definitely some great new stuff that came out, some big surprises, a couple of reschedules that of course really upset me, a couple of series starting up some brand new arcs, and more importantly, getting ready for the summer, because there have been some incredibly interesting announcements. There is going to be a brand new Shazam run by Mark Waid. We found out that Jeremy Adams, while he is leaving The Flash after issue number 800, he is officially going to start writing the brand new Green Lantern series that's going to be starting up with DC. Philip Kennedy Johnson is starting up a brand new Hulk series going back to the Incredible Hulk, so I'm really excited to see his take on the Hulk, especially considering the fact that Nick Klein, who has done work with Donny Cates on Thor, is now going to be doing the artwork for the Hulk. And of course, the two big interesting things which are actually going to get me back on the Marvel train is the fact that Jonathan Hickman has announced two interesting projects. Very exciting. Not to say that everything outside of the big two is not exciting. There's some really great things on the way from the indie circuit, and I'm excited to tell you guys about what's heading up our stores in April. So if we take a look at the numbers, it was definitely a larger month than the last two. I purchased a total of 40 books, but that's also due to the fact that a couple of books got rescheduled, and once again, I knew it was going to happen, but DC took the top spot, and even though the brand new Dawn of DC is starting up, and there's a lot of titles that I did decide that I was not going to be buying, there were still some runs that I have very much been invested in, like Chip Zdarsky's Batman run and Ram V's Detective Comics run, which may be my favorite ongoing at this point. And of course, we cannot deny the fact that Batman Superman World's Finest is the best thing that is coming out of DC Comics as of late. But I'm also very happy to see that we did get a couple more of the other indie conglomerates, as well as a big jump for Image. And I think that we're going to see big jumps for everyone in regards to what the summer is going to bring. But when, of course, we take a look at the percentages, about 40% of my purchasing was from DC, which is pretty crazy. And then, of course, when we take a look at the graph, because it is now starting to fill out, it is interesting to see that the Marvel started to rise towards February, and then it took a dip, and then DC decided to dip a tiny bit, but now went back to the top. And it is also really cool to see Image just slowly creeping further and further and further, and pretty much when it comes to indie comics, whatever Jeff Lemire is writing, I am buying. So the big question is, how did I do when it comes to my predicting for my top picks in March? Well, it was interesting, I'm not gonna lie about that. First and foremost, my original prediction was going to be the final installment of Mark Waid's Batman vs. Robin, which was going to close up the whole Lazarus arc over at DC Comics, and it turned out that my prediction for the following week of March, which was going to be Jeff Lemire's new offer from Image Comics, Fandom Road issue number 1, that got pushed up to the first week of March. So it turned out I am technically correct, because Phantom Road issue number 1 made the top spot for the first pick of March 2023, and it was such a cool read. I am so excited to see where this story goes. So then I had a void to fill. What was going to be my top pick in the second week of March 2023? Well, it was no surprise, but I had to give it to a comic that I have not been talking about too much, but really should be, especially because of the fact that it is going to be drawing to a close before the summer, and that is over at DC Comics, their Black Label. It is Batman and the Joker, the Deadly Duo, written and drawn by the great Marc Silvestri. This story is off the walls, but it is incredibly good. The art is stunning. Marc Silvestri, one of the greatest of the modern age. You've got to check out this comic if you haven't yet. And the cliffhanger from issue number 5 is a doozy, let me tell you. When we take a look at the third week of March, I thought it was going to be the brand new offering from Christopher Priest over at DC Comics, Superman Lost, issue number 1, a 10-issue maxi series. It was good. I loved the artwork, definitely want to see where this story goes. But one book which has always been one of my personal favorites just stunned me, and that of course was over at Image Comics, and once again, by Jeff Lemire. It is issue number 11 of Little Monsters. We are actually heading towards the end. The penultimate issue is coming out in April. Is that going to be my top pick for that week in April that it gets released? We'll find out. But I loved this issue. It really is starting to put everything into perspective, and I'm really excited to see how this series is going to come to its ultimate end. For the fourth week of March 2023, it was a 5-week new comic book month, so that is always exciting. I predicted correctly, and I went with Jeff Lemire again. That is 3 weeks in March where Jeff Lemire reigns supreme, and that was the closing issue of the DC Black Label, issue number 3 of Swamp Thing Green Hell. I got exactly what I wanted, even though I had to wait so long. I loved each and every one of these 3 issues, and the conclusion was exactly what I wanted. A nice, happy ending, because what does Jeff Lemire do that very few writers are doing these days in comics? He sticks the landing, and he gives you an ending. Something that is not necessarily open for a sequel, but he lets the story end exactly how it should. And Swamp Thing Green Hell, 3 issues, much like Robin and Batman. That's enough for a great story to tell. So then we had the last week of March, and I was going to give it to the final issue of Stillwater over at Image Comics by Chip Zdarsky, issue number 18. But wouldn't you know, it got pushed to the first week of April. So I had another gap to fill, and I'm not surprised with what I chose. It was the first issue of a brand new miniseries over at Image Comics by the great Mark Millar, and that was The Ambassadors issue number 1. I am so excited to see how this series goes, because while he's writing every issue, it's going to be a different artist each time. Think about it this way. Someone has the ability to give people superpowers, and this person can only give it to 8 human beings on the planet. Who would you choose? What a great idea. Mark Millar is just truthfully one of the best storytellers, along with Jeff Lemire and Mark Waid, just to name a few. You've got to check out The Ambassadors issue number 1. So that is where we conclude with the March predictions. So, 2 correct? I'll take it. Even though it was a 5-week month, you know, with reschedules and stuff like that, because I have a strange feeling that Stillwater probably would have ended up being my number 1. But then we go into the first week of April. Stillwater 18 may be coming out that week, but I don't think it's going to beat my prediction, and that is over at Dark Horse Comics. I have not mentioned Dark Horse in ages, and it is a brand new 4-issue miniseries by Matt Kindt, who is responsible for books that I've read like Berserker and Apache Delivery Service. He is writing a 4-issue miniseries called Hairball. The best way to describe it, Junji Ito meets Hayao Miyazaki. That's a win. That is a must-read for me. I also love when animals are involved in comics as the main characters, because one of my favorites is Stray Dogs. And another thing that I have to check out is this trade called Scurry. I heard it's amazing. But yeah, I am excited for Hairball number 1. It is an expensive book. I think it's $6, but I think it's going to be worth it. So for the second week in April, I have no idea where it's going to go. There are so many amazing issues coming out, and I think it's going to come down to the final 3. We've got the second issue of Phantom Road over at Image Comics by Jeff Lemire. We've also got the second issue of The Ambassadors by Mark Millar over at Image Comics. So it's a 3 for Image Comics, everybody. Or it could possibly be the penultimate issue of Little Monsters, which is issue number 12 by Jeff Lemire. I think I'm anticipating it to be Little Monsters issue 12, but we will see. Moving on to the third week in April, yeah, it could end up being another bunch. Could it possibly be, over at DC Comics, the 14th issue of World's Finest by Mark Waid? Could it be Ron Marz and Ron Lim teaming up again over at Marvel to give us Warlock Rebirth? I loved Silver Surfer Rebirth, so I am excited for this 5-issue miniseries. Or could it possibly be a book I did not anticipate picking up last month and did from Image Comics, a miniseries called No One by Kyle Higgins, which apparently happens to be in the Radiant Black universe. Surprise, surprise. No One, #1, was great. So it could possibly be issue #2. I have a feeling I'm probably going to end up going with my favorite and probably give it to World's Finest 14, but once again, we will see. And then we've got the last week of April 2023. I don't know, guys. Way too many. Could it be the final issue of Hulk, which is over at Marvel by Ryan Ottley, closing it out, and even with Donny Cates no longer being there, the fact that Ryan Ottley decided to write and finish it up and still do the artwork is a great feat. Could it possibly be over at Image Comics with Donny Cates' Vanish? Issue #6, because issue #5 took this story into very interesting places when the second story arc began. Could it possibly be over at Marvel with Sins of Sinister Dominion? A big surprise in the world of X-Men after so much disappointment. I have actually been enjoying Sins of Sinister, and I'm really curious to see how it's going to conclude. Or will it be over at DC Comics? Will we see the conclusion of Stargirl, The Lost Children by Jeff Johns, issue #6 coming out on top? Or could it possibly be the third issue of The Ambassadors over at Image Comics, once again by the great Mark Millar? I don't know. I gotta say, I don't have a clear decision, but if I'm going to pick one for the final week of April, I am probably going to end up trying to go with The Ambassadors issue #3. I might be wrong, but the most important thing is, with this month, now you know how torn I am for what April is going to give us, and it's just in time for the following month, which is not only going to be my daughter's first birthday and my wife's first Mother's Day, but it's also Free Comic Book Day, so I'm excited for that. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video of stats, trends, and picks for March 2023. I would love to hear what you thought some of your best reads were, and what are some of your predictions for April of 2023. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one.